Hi everyone, and welcome to Sharpen Up on JavaScript. Today, we're going to look at the JavaScript spread and rest syntax. Spread and rest statements are written using the ellipsis keyword, and we're going to see how spread and rest can increase your productivity, make your code more concise with arrays, objects, and even functions. So what's the difference between spread and rest? Spread and rest both use the ellipsis keyword. However, they are distinct JavaScript features, so we'll take a look at them individually. Let's start with spread, and then we'll cover rest. The spread syntax takes an object or an array as input, then extracts all the items in the case of an array, or all the properties in the case of an object. The items or properties are then inserted into a target, object, or an array. This does sound pretty simple, but when you take a deeper look, it solves many problems in a very intuitive and concise way, especially in the case of copying, merging, and manipulating objects and arrays. Let's take a look at this versatile feature in action. So, we're going to take a look at the spread operator by doing a few common operations on arrays and objects. Then we'll finish with taking a look at how we can use spread on function arguments too. Let's take a look at some examples. So we're going to have a look at the spread operator to see how we can clone objects and arrays. Let's clone an array. Start by defining an array, array1. If we wanted to clone it using the spread operator, it's as simple as defining a new array. So we'll call this one array2. And then all we have to do is define an empty array and then use the spread operator, which is the ellipsis keyword, ... and then the name of the array we want to clone. So array1. You'll see that it has the same values in it as array1. We can then apply the same principle to objects. So if we define an object, we'll call this object1, and we'll put a name of Mike and an age of 30. And then all we have to do is use the spread operator to clone that. So we just put spread operator, object1, we inspect object2. You'll see now it's cloned the contents of object1. It's as easy as that. Now that we've seen the basic syntax of spread used in cloning arrays and objects, let's take a look at combining existing arrays and objects together using the spread operator. So let's start by creating a base array, a new array, which we'll call array1, and we'll assign it to a value of ABC. Let's try and combine this array with another one. We define array2 is equal to blank array. There's various things we can do here. We can insert the original array at the beginning of array2 by specifying the spread operator and then putting array1 in there, and then maybe declaring some additional objects. You'll see now we've got A, B, C, D, E, F. We can also insert the array in between somewhere. So if we created array3 out of this, and we moved our spread array1 between D and E, you'll see it's been inserted in the position that we specified there. And of course, to finish, we can also add it to the end of that array. A, B, and C are at the end there. It's also nice and simple to combine multiple arrays together. So if we define an array of array1, and then we define a second array, we can define a third array, create a blank array there, spread the first array, array1, and spread array2. You can see now we have A, B, C, D, E, F, one big array stitched together using the spread operator twice. And you can of course combine as many arrays together as you like. The great thing is that you can do all of this rather complicated array manipulation with a really simple and easy to use operator instead of trying to memorize array prototype functions like slice, splice, or concat, and then trying to remember which one you need to use at a given moment. The spread operator is just really intuitive. You can also use spread to combine object properties into one object. So if we were to define an object called person and then define a likes object, we could very easily combine those objects together into one using the spread syntax. So let's say Mike equals new object, spread person, spread likes. And now we have an amalgamated object where the name's Mike, age 30, likes pizza as food, and favourite colour is green. So now we've just seen that we can combine objects together using the spread syntax. Let's take a look at merging objects. Let's see how spread reconciles the two objects when they're combined together. So let's use the example of pizzas. And if we had pizza 1 of type pepperoni and of size small, then we define another object called pizza 2, but this time the size is large. And we wanted to merge those two objects together. How do we reconcile those changes? Using the spread operator, we can merge those two objects together. So let's create pizza 3, a new object. And what we'll do is we'll put pizza 1 in and spread the properties. And then afterwards we'll put pizza 2 and spread those properties as well. And when we combine these two together, you'll see that the size is large. And what's happened is, if the two objects have the same property, the second argument will take precedence over the first one. That's how we've ended up having a pepperoni pizza that has a size of large. If we reverse the process, change that to pizza 2 and that to pizza 1, we'll now have a pepperoni pizza that's small. The rightmost object always takes precedence over the leftmost one. So finally, we'll take a look at how we can use the spread operator on applying an array of arguments to a function, by which I mean using array elements to fulfill a number of parameters in a function. So if we were to define a function called sum all 3, and it takes 3 parameters, a, b, and c, and in this function we just return a plus b plus c. When we input the value sum all 3, and we input 1, 2, and 3, we get back the value 6. But what if we wanted to populate the parameters of this function using an array instead of manually entering them? Well, we can do that with the spread operator. Let's define an array args, and all we have to do to use those array arguments as parameters is call our function and then use the spread operator on an array. And what that'll do for us is it will convert every array element into arguments for the function. You'll see we get the value 6 back. So in summary, spread syntax is very versatile. It makes building arrays and objects out of existing ones much easier. The syntax is concise and easy to read. REST syntax, also known as REST parameters, is a JavaScript feature that lets you specify infinite parameters when a function is called. The simplest way to think about a function that uses a REST parameter is that when it gets called, any excess or remaining arguments unhandled in the function signature that get passed into the function are converted into an array containing those remaining arguments. The array of arguments can then be accessed inside the function. Here are a few examples to demonstrate REST syntax in action. So let's take a look at REST syntax. So if we define a function and it has an argument of argument A, we're able to directly address argument A because it's defined in the function signature. It'll log out anything that we put in here. And that's great, but sometimes you want to provide a mechanism that allows the developer or the user of your code to provide indeterminate amount of arguments in a function. The REST operator allows us to do that with ease. Say function thing2, we'll still provide our argument A. We can also provide a REST parameter. It's essentially another parameter that we pass into our function. So we'll call it arguments. We'll prepend it with our REST operator. And what this will allow us to do is gain access to an unlimited number of arguments that the user passes into our function. So what we can do with this is we can log out our argument A, but we can also treat any subsequent arguments as array items that are passed into the function. If I was to do an arguments.map for every element in the array, I'm going to call a console.log. So now function thing2 is defined. And if we were to call thing2 as is now, we could provide a first argument, put in a second argument, and you get B and C. One of the amazing things about this is that we can provide unlimited arguments to this function now. So we can put C, we can put D, and we could literally go on forever. And then if you call this, every single one of those arguments is being printed out. We've created a parameter that essentially says in this function signature, make use of the first argument that's passed in, and then for every subsequent argument, do the same thing to that argument. So what that means is, using the REST operator, we can pass an arbitrary number of arguments into a function, and we can automate how n arguments is handled in that function. It's really quite powerful. Using another example, join words, a function that uses only REST arguments, arguments.join, and then put a space there. Take our array that we just extracted from the REST arguments, and we can log them out. So we define our function join words that uses the REST syntax, and we can call it hello, my name is Mike. And you see now it's combined, it's joined all of the words up into a sentence, into one single string. REST syntax is a great way to handle function calls. With an indeterminate number of arguments on each call, it adds flexibility to your functions simply and intuitively. The great news is that there aren't really any trade-offs for using REST or spread. They're well supported in the latest builds of all popular browsers. However, REST and spread cannot be polyfilled for older browsers, so you will need to use a transpiler such as Babel in your build process if you want to avoid running into JavaScript errors in older browsers such as Internet Explorer. If you don't need to support older browsers, then it's perfectly fine to use REST and spread natively. So now you have a couple of extra JavaScript tools at your disposal. I hope you enjoy putting them to good use. Start using spread and REST in your JavaScript today. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing for more. And remember, stay sharp.